Awesome. Well, I think we're going to get started here. So, hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the first Music Industry Job Series panel of 2023. My name's Elias. I work for the Student Events and Entertainment Office, and we're really excited to have you all here today. Today, we have a special guest. He's the founder of the audio education company, Academy, and the software company Drumforge, not to mention an incredible mixing and mastering engineer in his own right, working with bands like Attila, Bless the Fall, Machine Head, and Versus Me. I'm proud to introduce you all to Mr. Joel Wanasek. How are you doing today, Joel?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So there's one question that I want to get out of the way right off the bat before I let you take the mic. And it's that oftentimes, we'll hear the word music producer thrown around. Oftentimes that's a word that's used to refer to you, but it's pretty broad and pretty overused. There are tons of albums where you've worked on where you're not credited as the primary producer. You're a mix engineer or mastering engineer, and sometimes there are records where there'll be a bunch of different people listed: recording engineer, mastering engineer, so, or drum technician. So as a mixer, where do you see sort of your role in that hierarchy or in that atmosphere, and how would you explain that?
Sure. I'll take a broad context and break it down. And I talk fast, so hopefully it's not too fast for all of you, but I'm going to zip through this. Okay. So there's a lot of different roles in the music industry in terms of like music production. The first is usually, I'll start from kind of like the basic, but usually you have like an engineer, right? Who's the person that physically pushes the buttons. They set up the microphone, they hit record, they, do all that kind of stuff. And aside from that, after you have the engineer, usually you have like an editor or somebody like that who comes in and basically essentially, if like a artist comes and plays something or the singer sings something out of tune, because they usually do now, they're not as good as they used to be. The editor will fix all that stuff. Okay. And then, you have a mixer. So once the band is recorded, right, they go to one of these people with a spaceship looking thing, which maybe some of you have seen. Now it's more like a mouse and a computer, but I have one of them in front of me. You can't see it because my camera is facing this way, but it is here and it does exist. Give me a second here. I'm sorry. I just want to resize this window. It's weird looking at myself while I talk with a delay. Okay. So anyways, so that's what a mixer does. A mixer basically takes a bunch of tracks that a band has recorded and they make them sound great, as good as that song can. So you can basically take that song and take its emotional capacity and translation to the listener and make the best version. So basically when somebody hits play, they listen to the song and they're like, I like this song or I don't. And that's it. Some people like to glorify mixing because it's kind of like the Top Gun fighter pilot of the industry, meaning everybody wants to do it, but only a handful of people are actually good enough. And it probably takes 2 decades of actually mixing to be somewhat, decently competitive, to see if you can actually even hang in the big leagues. Now, that being said, there's obviously people that do like local and small bands, but I'm talking about like big time, you know what I mean? Like real bands. So that's what a mixer does. Aside from that, there's a mastering engineer, right? So once a song is mixed, the mastering engineer might say, I have 10 songs done on a record that has been mixed by 3 different people, and we need somebody to sequence the record. So what song goes first or whatever, make sure everything translates, that there's no issues. For example, maybe the bottom end on a mix is too blown out versus the rest of the album, or some mixes aren't bright enough, or etc. So that's a mastering engineer. And then there is the producer, which is the most bastardized, misused, and incorrect term in all of music that nobody understands anymore. I actually just did a rant about this. There's a big thing with Rick Rubin, like 2 weeks ago. He had that 60 Minutes interview, and the way Anderson Cooper framed it, he's just like, oh, well, what do you do? And he's just like, I just listen. And he's just like, what do you get paid for it? It's just amazing how many people actually don't know what a fucking music, sorry, I was told I can swear, so I'm sorry, but what a fucking music producer actually does, which is kind of shocking. So let me take it back and explain the evolution of the term, because it is important to understand what a producer does and why a producer is important. Now people are like, I'm a producer, and they're like a beat writer, or they're like a songwriter, or maybe they like record the band and they mix it, or they do everything else because they have like a small homebrew studio or something like that. Like that's how I started. Technically, you are the producer, and that is your role. But what a producer used to be is like a movie producer, okay, where you hand the person a budget, and then they're like, okay, let's get the team to make the product. And then their job is to simply focus on making the best piece of art possible with that artist, to take them in the best headspace possible, to do and to create the best possible product that will be taken to market and hopefully become successful. And if it's not, well, they'll find somebody else who probably will do a better job of it. So, a producer's job is to get great performances. It's to inspire the artist to write the best songs, or to be paired with the best songwriters that can help that artist write the best songs, because most artists don't write their own songs. They go to LA or Nashville and they write with different teams of writers who are much better at it than they are. And, they are just performers and entertainers essentially. So the way it works is a producer's job is to basically, here's $500,000, go make this record with fill in the blank, Dua Lipa. Well, it'd probably be like a $2 million budget, but go make a record with Dua Lipa, and we need 3 singles and 12 tracks. And the producer will go around and listen to 200 different songs by writing camps and sit down with the artist, and then they'll figure out like the 12 that they think are the best, and they'll sit down and they'll cut those tracks and pick the engineer in the studio they're going to cut drums in and get this and hire that. That's what a producer traditionally does. Now, if you're in hip hop, a producer is the person who writes the beat, which is hilarious because I would just call him a beat maker. But that, everybody in hip hop seems to think like that's the producer. Okay, great. They don't handle the budget. They just, pop up Ableton and smacking a beat or Fruity Loops, and that's cool. In rock music and other genres, they have what are called songwriters, which in hip hop would essentially be like the beat maker, right? Okay, so, or the track writer. You also have like top liners and people that write vocals and lyricists and stuff like that get thrown into the equation. So now a producer can mean anything from anybody who records and because if you're not working with label bands, you don't have a budget. So you're not managing a team. If it's just me recording in my basement in Wisconsin 20 years ago with some local band, I'm the producer because I'm the only person that can fill that role by default. So a lot of people call themselves a producer, but how many people are actual real producers? Well, in a technical term, not too many. So hopefully that helps understand that. So I'm a mixer. That's what I do. I run one of the largest mixing education companies on the planet called Nail the Mix. And I also do software, meaning like we do drum libraries and things like that, and samples and mixing plugins and things like that. So basically I mix, I teach people how to mix, and I make software to help people mix better.
Awesome. Great, concise explanation. So let's get into it. Here's the loaded question. How did you get your start in the music industry?
How much time you got? All right, this is a long story, but I think it's a good one because there's a lot of good lessons in this, especially for students who are kind of coming up and trying to find your way in this business. Because internally, if you go into this industry, like, let's be honest, this is one of the hardest industries to cut it in. 99% of people are not cut out to do what we do. And the people that are at the top are like a special breed of maniac, kind of like people that own companies and are entrepreneurs. Like when you meet those people and you hang out with somebody, they think differently than normal people do. Like, our parents, my parents who had have a normal job and worked for, my mom was a nurse. My dad worked for an IT, like people that come from like a normal traditional background don't understand what goes on in the music industry and like how crazy it is and stuff like that. It's just like, so it's like imagine being 16 and trying to explain to your 45-year-old mom that you want to be a TikTok star. She'd be like, what's TikTok? I heard that. Is that like Chinese spyware? Like what's an influencer? Well, what do you influence? You just take pictures of yourself in the mirror in underwear. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not going to get it. Like they just don't understand it. They're too old. So, that's kind of how I felt when I was starting. So, I started when I was a young kid. I played violin. I was in the Milwaukee Youth Symphony and all that crap. And I fell in love with guitar. That was like the thing where I was sitting there. My friend showed me a thing, and I heard a dude play guitar, Randy Rhoads with Ozzy Osbourne. Now I'm showing my age. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. I want to dedicate my life to being a guitar virtuoso. So I basically practiced guitar like 6 to 8 hours a day from the age of like 16 until about 22 or 23. I mean, that was it. Like you guys were partying in college, I was shredding, trying to get good at guitar. Lo and behold, I realized that nobody cares other than, just write a good song. That's all that matters. So I got into audio production. I played in a band for years. Okay. But I got into audio production when I stepped into a studio the first time. Cause I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff does, but I feel like I'm in a spaceship and this is the coolest damn thing I've ever seen. And I just got this really good gut feeling about it, which is a good lesson when you're doing something, because you don't necessarily know you're going to do, like maybe you're writing, like doing music journalism or something. If you get a really good gut feeling about something and you get like intrinsically excited, that's something to grab onto because that means something, right? Like first time I walked into a studio, it gave me butterflies. I was just like the first time I picked up a guitar, I'm like, this feels right. I don't know what it is. but I feel like this is going to play a big role in my life. So, when you have those moments, like you just walk in and something just resonates with you and you're like, yes, this is what I do. This is who I am. This is my calling. So, that's how I felt about production. Back then we didn't have technology like we did now. I had to save up for like a whole year to buy like a crappy 4-track recorder that would cut out after a minute and a half and piece together crappy instrumental shred guitar, neoclassical solo demos that no one cared about except for like 8 people who were also trying to do the same thing. So, technology increased like early 2000s. I'm 41 now. So I was in college in 1999 through like 2003, I want to say, if my memory is correct. So I kind of was in a band and I was putzing around with recording. My band got signed, but then what happened is the label folded or whatever. And we basically had studio time booked. So I decided to learn production because I was interested in it. I went out and bought my first interface, or I should say converters, equivalent back then, and started recording myself. And, I taught myself audio production in a cornfield in Wisconsin, which is insane. Looking back, thinking about all the things in my life that I've done and all the artists I've worked with and things like that, I had no internships, no big studios, no anything. So for me, it was like an uphill battle. Imagine like going to college, right? Getting a bank job like I did. Then you get your first like real decent job. You're making good money. And then you're like, Mom, I don't want to do this. I've got a little bit of money saved up. I need to move back into your basement. And I'm going to start this studio thing. I did all that road construction during college and can I build some rooms down there? And, my mom was like, the fuck are you doing with your life? Why don't you get a job with benefits? And I'm like, no, it'll be cool. So my first year in music as a music producer, I made $6,000. That was fun coming from a job back then where it was like, my second job was like 55K, which, it was what you expect to make like when you get out of school. And, I had to like work at a bank for like $27,000 a year and then finally get a decent job. And, it sucked because, it was kind of like humiliating a way because it's like, I just decided to go all in. Like I couldn't handle the corporate stuff. I couldn't handle not working for, like working for somebody else. I'm the worst, laziest person in the world as an employee. As a business owner, I'm the hardest working fucking maniac ever. I mean, there's people like Elon Musk who are probably more savage, but I'm fucking insane. Like I will work 20-hour days for months straight and do anything that it takes to win. And so are the people that I work with. So, like my business partner, Joey, who's one of the most famous metal producers in history. You know what I mean? Like the people we work with, like they're all maniacs. Like we're just wired differently. So like when you work for somebody else, and you don't own it, the way that you approach everything in your life is different than when it's yours. So for me, I had to go on my own. It was a big risk. I was scared shitless. I had no money. I went into debt. I moved back into my mom's basement. I started recording shitty bands and, I clawed my way up with no mentorship, no internship, no nothing other than the will to succeed. And it was brutal. It took me about 3 years to get established. I remember my wife at the time when I just got married, she bailed me out of like 15 grand in debt, that I was sitting there, it was rough. Like I really, really went in. And I got a studio going and I was playing in a band at that time. My band blew up. And we got to tour with Papa Roach and Buck Cherry again. You're probably a little young to remember that, but I was playing 10,000 seat arenas in like 2007, if that makes sense, with my band. And it was awesome for a while, but then the market shifted to like EDM, like Skrillex came out and dubstep and everybody started going in that direction and pop. And all of a sudden everybody stopped signing butt rock bands. So at that point, I remember my wife was like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? You literally went out and played for 10,000 people last night. You guys sold a few $1,000s in merch and you made $250 this weekend. You've been in front of 20,000 people cumulatively. You guys crushed it. I watched the videos and you come home with $250. It's like you could have stayed home and recorded a band and made that in a couple hours. Like, what are you doing? And so my band disintegrated due to some complicated industry politics. And at that point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go full on and be a producer. This seems like a pivot and I'm making just enough money now where I can survive. I have a crappy efficiency apartment. You know what I mean? This is tough. Like, again, when you go to college and you get out and then decide to jump in instead of being like when you're supposed to, like when you're like 18, try doing this at the age of like 25. You know what I mean? Like your parents will look at you like you come from a gutter, at least my parents. They're just like, we failed at life. So It gets better though, I promise. So I worked my ass off. And when I quit playing in a band and juggling 5,000 things, I focused on one thing, and that was producing. And I became the dude in like the area here. I mean, the area, I mean, like, the state. Like I had people from Chicago, from Minneapolis, all over Wisconsin, as far as Ohio, coming out to record with me because my quality was better. I was one of the only people that got metal, right? No one else understood it. That was like the hot thing because we had MySpace back then. And MySpace was like the TikTok. Like a band would get on MySpace and they would just explode in like 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden be signed and like crazy shit. So MySpace was like the best band breaking thing in history. It was like the craziest time to be alive for music because stuff would just blow up. It doesn't do it like it's not like it used to be. Stuff would just blow up. You could go to a local show, there'd be like 400 kids in a Legion Hall doing spin punches and shit and cartwheels, looking depressed in their goth emo swooped, pink belted, like, it was a thing. You know what I mean? It was a massive, massive cultural movement. And like MySpace was the facilitator of that. It was just like, that was it. And all these bands and great music came out of that. So meanwhile, while I was doing my thing, my partner, Joey, he was the guy that hit the right band at the right time. And it basically invented that sound. It became like the most legendary metal producer for like a decade worldwide. And Sturgis, Google him if you're not familiar. So, I met Joey, and this is a great lesson. I have, because this is where I got to today, because Joey and I have made over $20 million together, and we've absolutely built an unstoppable empire in this industry, and like, we're just getting started. So, my philosophy with artists was always give them more than they're paying with. A lot of people look at this as like a service business. The band comes in, they record, get the fuck out, right? Give me my money, next band, right? It's just like somebody at McDonald's. You walk in, I'll have a cheeseburger, no mustard, no onions, and a pair of fries, less on the salt, and a water. Okay, here's your burger. Okay, fuck off, next customer, right? Like that's how a lot of people handle production, which is totally stupid and totally wrong. I have the opposite approach. One of the things I learned when my band blew up is I was licensing songs and writing for major like sports teams. Like I wrote the Atlanta Falcons theme song in like 20 minutes while my singer was upstairs putting gel in his hair. You know what I mean? Like we were doing cool stuff like that. And it was an interesting time and opportunity. And basically, I always used to, when I was licensing songs, I met a guy from a band named Dope. He taught me how to build a band because he had sold like 500,000 records. And he was a really smart guy. And once I learned that, I started applying that to local bands. So I got 2 bands from Milwaukee signed, one called Mechanical Kids. And a few years later, a band called Vinyl Theater. And they got signed to 2 different major labels. One was Universal Motown, Mechanical Kids, but they also got dropped before they came out because Motown folded. This was like 2009, 8, 9, 10. I might remember. And then I had Vinyl Theater get signed to Fueled by Ramen Atlantic. And what I did is I would take bands and I would teach them how to be successful. I would go be like, all right, instead of a band, you are now a brand. We're going to teach you how to do this because we're going after investors. So we need to worry about the way that you're dressed all the way down to your shoes, your freaking hair. So, your image needs to look like your music. It needs to look like this. We need to analyze the market. We need to find your position. We would go in and I would build bands with local artists. I would find those 2 or 3 people that actually could do the work, that had the talent, that had the voice, that had the look, that had the energy, the charisma, and I would develop them. And I didn't get paid for any of it, but I'll tell you, it did pay off later in the career. So one of those bands one day showed up, and this was some crappy death metal, deathcore. I hate that genre band. And I gave them my all. And by the end of the week, the band had broken up, but they did something for me. They went to their high school 2 days after, and they showed and passed their demo CD around that they were so proud of. And one of the bands heard it. And they called me and they're like, yo, I just paid $60 an hour for some old guy who doesn't get metal, some boomer, and his stuff sucks. Like, can we come record with you? Your shit's fire. I'm like, all right, that's cool. So I recorded this band and they're like, yeah, we're going to go record with this Joey guy, the guy that I mentioned earlier, who was just blowing up. He did a band called The Devil Wears Prada. And we don't have enough money here. He doesn't have a time because he just started doing all this Rise Records metalcore crap. How about he mixes it and you produce it? I'm like, sure. So I went down there with this band. Again, I'd never worked with another producer before. I'm self-taught. I'm from a basement, right? I went down there and met this dude, scraggly looking guy who comes up, smokes 5 packs of cigarettes a day with 6 cans of NOS. He's going through just a crazy dude, just sitting there in his freaking trailer park in a garage in Indiana. And I walk in there and I'm like, dude, you look like you pulled out of a rat's nest. Like, we need to hose this guy down. He was just the roughest looking dude I've ever seen. and like just lived off cigarettes and nos. Like I don't think we ate the whole time we were there, other than maybe once at Taco Bell. But Joey and I became like best friends because he was like me. He was a dude from the middle of nowhere, Indiana, Connorsville, some hick ass town in the middle of nowhere with like no scene, that was just working his ass off. He taught himself how to record all the shit. And, you know, he hit the right band at the right time and just started crushing it. So we became friends and started working together. Now Joey blew up and like just became a super producer. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. He's a fucking genius. But my rise was slow and steady. And, you know, every year I made more and more money. I became more and more successful. My reach went, I started getting bands signed and stuff like that. And then Joey called me in like 2013, I want to say. And he's like, dude, and this is another amazing lesson. He calls me and says, hey, I put a bass drop sample on my website. You have to understand how many fucking followers this guy had. He was like the first rock star producer online because he was like the guy who basically made it cool to have like a cheap $200 interface and a Line 6 pod, right? Which is like the cheapest, worst guitar amp ever invented, and made a whole career with it. And everybody was like, I could be that person, right? I don't need a rocket ship studio. I don't need to go to LA. Like, look at Joey in Indiana. This guy is killing it. He lives in a fucking mansion. You know, he doesn't even have to shave. So it was insane because like literally Joey exploded, had this massive online following, and he put a bass drop sample for sale because he was always an entrepreneur. And just like I was, I actually left this detail out. I actually, in 1999 through 2006, I actually built one of the first instructional guitar sites in the internet called insaneguitar.com for like shred guitar players. And it was massive. I didn't know anything about business, but I could have made millions, and I was stupid and young and opportunity missed. But I was always an entrepreneur and I was thinking that way, right? So my mentality was always different than like how most people are programmed to think. It was always like, you know, I want to do something crazy with my life. So, you know, when I met Joey, he was kind of the same way. So Joey puts up a bass drop and he's like, bro, I made 40 grand this weekend selling a fucking sub drop sample. I'm like, whoa. And he's like, you know, meantime, we're like charging $300 a day to record bands. And he's like, we should do guitar impulses. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to figure it out. So I went home, Googled guitar impulse. I made an impulse pack, sent it to him. We sold that thing. We made $40,000 in 2 weeks. And I was like, why the fuck are we recording bands? I mean, recording bands is cool, but you know, so Joey was like, dude, I have so much mixing. I can't take it. He's like, you want to learn to be me and be me under my name? I'm like, yeah. So I learned how to mime him. And I mixed a ton of massive bands under his name that nobody knew at the time. So we would just nerd out about production for hours. And then one day we were on the phone and we're just like, dude, why aren't we recording this? Well, you know, there was like online metal is like this really cliquey community. It's like, there's a lot of music producers, but nothing is like the metal community. The metal community is by far the strongest, most involved community in music, period. I don't know why. It is. It's like all the nerds congregate there. Metal is the hardest thing to mix, hardest thing to record, hands down. Take my word for it. I've mixed every fucking genre competitively. You know, I've had shit on the radio in almost every genre. So I will tell you from experience, metal, hands down, fucking destroys everything else in terms of difficulty. 200 session pop is a fucking joke compared to getting distorted guitars and cymbals to sit together in a mix. Seriously. I mean, if you want to compete, right, at the highest level, because the people that get there, it's like 15 years of just getting good at guitar tone, you know, to finally get a good guitar tone. Seriously, like that's how high the fucking bar is. So it's not like that in pop. Like I'm mixing a pop song literally before I got on this, and the producer sent it over the shittiest fucking guitars I've ever heard in my life. And my job is to fix them. But you know, when I get done with that song, it'll bang. But if this was a metal song, I would get thrown out of the fucking industry for turning in that kind of shit. But thank God it's a pop rock song. So that's how high the bar is. So like, if you can do that shit, you can do anything. So, okay. Joey and I, we start a podcast with this other guy, AL, who had started doing a little bit of audio education. And, you know, we got our first like 1,000 or, you know, like a couple hundred subscribers over a year. And everybody's like mixing. We want to learn mixing. We want to learn mixing. And we were like, well, we're not dumb. We're smart dudes. So we thought about it. We're like, people want mixing. So why don't we give them what they want, right? It's called product market fit in business. So we started this thing called Nail the Mix. And Nail the Mix was crazy because how do I explain this? Imagine what it's like to be in a band where you're playing for like a bar for like 20 people. And then next month you're on stage in front of an arena of 10,000 people, you know, and your song is all over the radio. It was kind of the same thing for us. Is like, you know, our business makes like 30 grand a month or a year. a year at that time. And then all of a sudden, like a year later, it's a multi-million-dollar company, you know, like, whoa. It was fucking crazy. We had the right thing at the right time and we did it different than everybody else. And it exploded and it was nuts because, you know, before this, Joey and I were like mixing 60 songs a month, which is an insane output. I mean, we were just doing hundreds and hundreds of songs, just like maniacs, like smashing so much stuff. And then came up with this idea, nailed the mix, and holy shit, like that changed my life because it was like, now all of a sudden it's like you have this thing that explodes and we're like, well, shit, we're just a bunch of recording guys. We don't know anything about fucking business. So it was like going for an MBA. I read like 60 or 70 books in the next 18 months. I literally, you know, aside from working like 16-hour fucking days. I mean, you have to understand how brutal the music industry is. Like no bullshit. Like when I say I work hard, I gave up my 20s because I was working. Like my friends were all like, dude, we're in Panama City. We're hanging out. We met some chicks. We're partying. I'm like, that's cool. I'm fucking working. It's 3 a.m. I've literally slept on the fucking floor last night and ate ramen 3 hours. My vision is blurred and I keep fucking going because I have to, because I'm that busy. You know, I remember looking outside at the bar at like 2 a.m. from my old office up the street, like a decade ago. And I'm mixing songs and I'm sitting there like, you know, I don't even know how I'm awake at this point. You know, I also have 3 young kids, right? You know, at the time. So like, you know, I'm like max. I'm working 16-hour days, 6 to 7 days a fucking week, you know, and I'm married with kids. If you have kids, you understand. If you don't, holy shit, I hope you do someday because you'll understand what that means and how much weight that carries. I remember looking out at the bar and listening to people having fun. And I'm like in my early 30s at this time. And just the envy and desire I had to just like think to myself, what must it be like to go have fun? Because I've worked the last 13 years of my life. So I basically worked for a decade and a half straight, like literally a decade and a half straight. I mean, I had periods where I would work like 3 months straight with like, you know, average day, 14 hours. It didn't even faze me because I'm just like, I want to be the best at what I do. I don't care about anything else. This is what I love. This is who I am. And that's what it took to be successful. So like when we applied that kind of work mentality, and again, my partner, Joey, my other partner, Al, they were just like me. Like I joke, I'm like, a lot of people could have did what we did back then, but we were the only people that actually did the fucking work and wanted to do it. Right. That was the difference. So we approached it like learning to mix competitive. We were like, okay, we need to become like CEOs immediately. We need to basically get MBAs. Joey went and dropped $120K in marketing education. Al went and dropped $30,000 at a different set. You know, I was doing it. I took all this crazy sales training and stuff like that. And we went out and we learned how to be content creators. We learned how to be managers. We learned about payment processing, accounting. We learned all the crap, you know, you have to learn in school that you don't want to learn. That's not fun. You're sitting there. You're like, I own a multi-million-dollar company all of a sudden overnight. I better fucking figure this out because I don't want to screw this up because this is like life-changing money. Like you got to understand when you work in a service business and you're like this and this, you're like, shit, I don't have anything booked in 2 months. Like, holy fuck, I got 3 kids at home and I have to work. And like, you know, how am I going to afford my house? And then that band comes in, you book them. You're like, okay, I'm good for another month. Like that's what your life is like for like a decade and a half. And then all of a sudden you're like, I get paid every month automatically, whether I work or not. And people work for me. This is crazy. It was like so life-changing because it was like all of a sudden now I could sleep at night and not have to worry about was I going to eat next week, right? So we started doing that, you know, around that time we also started selling software and stuff and things like that. And again, all that stuff took off, popped, it made a ton of money. And you know, we built an empire with it. And, you know, I love it because I've been able to dedicate my life to at least this section of it, to finding younger people who are in my position, the person who never had help, the person who got turned down from every internship, the person who had to figure it out in a basement. And I can talk to that kid and I can guide them and help them build a successful career in this industry. And for me, that means something because it's like looking at my younger self in the mirror. And that's really a mission. You know, it's like really fucking amazing to be able to get to do that every day because we have like 7,000 subscribers or something like that at URM. It's a crazy amount of people. Like I have traveled all over the world and met people, you know, like we went to Sweden, like 70 people fucking came out to see us. It was like crazy. We're like, yeah, we're going to be at the bar. Let's do a meetup. And like, you know, we've had summits where like people will fly in from all over the world to come see us speak and do all this crazy shit. It's crazy, man, because it's like, I just think of, 10 years ago, I was sitting in a basement fucking around with local bands. And now like I have this massive corporate responsibility. I mean, it's also stressful because it's like now you have to manage teams and employees and expectations and corporate culture and make sure you don't say anything stupid online and make some joke and get canceled or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of pressure, a lot of energy. I'm still grinding stuff. I mean, last week I worked I think on average 12 hours a day. I worked all day Saturday. I worked half a day yesterday, and it's what I'm still going today. And I got here at 9 a.m. So, I mean, like that's what it takes. Now, that being said, here's the benefit for those of you that want to work hard in this business and be successful. If you do something cool and you kick ass at what you do, you'll get to a point where you can just take 3 months off all summer and go travel. That's the beauty. And you all you got to do is check into your team once a week and make sure they're not fucking up. So, you can build your life and set your life up that way. I could sell my company and retire right now. But at the same time, I'm a driven person. I have a very specific mission and a duty. And I'm just like passionately focused on achieving that and taking it to, the highest level. I mean, 2 years ago, I started a CBD side hustle and I made like $6 million. And honestly, I fucking hated it. I came back to music. I started mixing again. And I got out of super entrepreneur land because I was like, I don't want to own like 5 companies. This is stupid. This is too much stress. It's too crazy. It's too unpredictable. Like what I love doing is music. So I'm going to get rid of this and this and this and this and out of my life and just focus on what I love most. And that's this. So that's what I do. That's my story.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, we're going to open things up for student questions real quick. But I have a few that I'd like to ask you right now. So if you're in the audience, here's your time to prep anything. So first off, there are a lot of people who come to these music industry job series seminars that aren't in a music related major, but still want to be involved in the music industry. What would you say to them?
I went to school for business, not music. I didn't pass semester 1 of music because it was stupid. I was just like, I don't want to go to school and pay money to learn how to play jazz. I can do that in my own fucking time. Like I said, I come from a classical music background. No disrespect to my friends in jazz, but we have this thing in classical music versus like jazz. It's just like there's a certain pretentious thing that jazz musicians have. We're just like, go fuck yourselves. You guys are assholes. So, anyways, I had a young chip on my shoulder towards that, and I didn't see the value of it. So I got out of that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I would say focus on this. Focus on high income skills that generate a lot of money. Okay. And money is not everything. I'll tell you, as somebody, like I said, who's made over $20 million that, money is cool. It will solve some problems in your life, but it'll also fucking create a lot more if you're not careful. And it will distort your life in a way that few people can appreciate. It's like one of those things you got to be sitting around a cigar bar with a bunch of millionaires, like talking about your fucking problems. Like no one else can relate to it. No one's going to empathize with it because they don't fucking understand what it's like to have to deal with that level of shit. So money is important to a certain degree. Okay. And it's worth the time to build the skills to put yourself in a position where you can get enough money to not have to fucking struggle. Okay. There's nothing glorious or cool about struggling. I'm sorry. Anybody who disagrees, you're fucking wrong. And if you don't think so, in 10 years, you'll understand what I'm saying. Because once you become an adult and have a child, like a real adult, and you have responsibility, you don't just live for your own selfish needs, you realize how important money is because you're responsible for another human life. You're responsible for a family. You're responsible for, more than just like your own immediate needs. And at that point in life, you realize how important money. I didn't give a shit about money until I had my first child. And the day my daughter was born, I was like, holy fuck, I better get it together. I mean, I was focused, but I wasn't never focused like that until I had a kid. And I've seen this happen a million times. My friends are like, oh, I'm about to have a kid. And I'm like, you don't know, you don't fucking understand. Like once you have your kid, like it's going to change you and you're going to be focused. So what I'm saying is get high income skills. All right. There are skills that are worth a lot of money. For example, video, killing it right now. Like you want to crush it, get into the video content creation game. I mean, I have like 5 video people on my staff. All they do every day is I wake up, I walk into this room on this setup, I turn on my lights, I hit the camera, and I fucking talk. And then I send it to them and they turn it into something good. And then I do that over and over and over. Like, we're going to do a bunch of YouTube reacts. We're going to do this. We're going to film a course. And they just sit there and they edit, create, flash, zoom, this, that, fly. And they make this stuff look cool. And the thing is, it's so hard to find people that are good. And the people that are good at it, I pay a shitload of money and they will always have a fucking job because it's the most useful skill. So go after skills that have value, that are high income, right? Going after, like, you know, if you go to school for accounting, you know what an accountant's going to make within a region, you know, within a certain range. You go to school to be a doctor, right? If you go to school as like a freelance video editor or like a freelance video person, the fucking sky is your limit for the amount of money you can do and stuff like that. So high income skills, focus on that. Focus on something that is valuable, that's in demand, that is in the the industry that you care about. And that I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. Okay, never. I just wanted to record bands. I didn't even want to mix bands, but that's what I get hired for. That's what apparently I'm good at. I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to do education. I never thought I would, but here I am. I realize I have a talent for speaking in terms of, like, you know, content creation and shit. And that's what I do for my company. I get up and I teach people how to fucking turn knobs on a computer or on a board, you know, and make it entertaining and stuff like that. So I never knew I had that skill, but once I learned I had it, I focused on it. I'm like, okay, because I'm very shy. If you saw me 20 years ago, I was like the most introverted kid. This is all trained right here. Okay. Like energy. I had to learn how to communicate. I had to learn body language. I had to learn how to articulate all this shit. And these are skills, and skills can be learned no matter what your inherent personality is. So I think that it's important to find something that you're strong at, that's high value, and get amazing at that and go at that like it's the most important thing ever, because you'll always have work and you'll always be able to adapt to an ever-changing industry.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to open up the floor for student questions. So I'd do the little virtual raise your hand reaction if you want to ask a question, and I'll call on you.
They're just like, this guy's crazy. I can take something in the interim if you want. Go ahead. What do you got?
Well,
I never raised my hand when I was in school. I was always afraid of I never liked asking questions myself. So
I mean, if I had to ask, I'd say, was there ever like a point? I mean, what did you say like was most instrumental in making you like better at mixing music?
The desire to be the best. This is like a pro tip hack. So if you want to be good at something, how do I put this? Most people don't think they're capable of greatness. Okay. I'm not that talented, but I'll outwork almost anybody on this fucking planet. I know people that are way more gifted than myself. I know because I work with them every day and I've been working with them for 20 years. But I'll tell you one thing, out of all the people that I came up with, I'm the guy that's still here. What's the difference between me and everybody else? I all fucking worked every single one of those motherfuckers. They're all lazy because they knew they were talented. I had to earn it. I wasn't as good. So for me, a lot of people don't think they can do great things because they overestimate what they can achieve in a short period of time. Like, oh, in a year, I'm going to blow up and we're going to do this and we'll go viral on TikTok and we're going to get 6 million. You know, everybody overestimates what they can do in a year, but no, everyone underestimates what they're capable in 10 because they're not thinking the long game. And that's so important when you're in business. I don't think in 1 year cycles. I don't give a shit about what happens next week or next month. I'm worried about what am I doing in 10 years? What's the market going to be? How am I going to adapt? How am I going to get ahead? How am I going to win? Right. So my philosophy with getting good at something is always like, try to be the best in the world at it. You probably don't have the talent to, but if you set your bar that high, right? And you like, you know, it's kind of like my bar is the moon, right? But that's unattainable, but you get out of the atmosphere at least, you're already ahead of 99% of fucking people because most people don't even think they can get off the ground. You understand? Like society has preconditioned people to think that, you know, you can't be a superstar at something and you absolutely can. If you put in the time and you put in the work, and you put in the determination and you really believe in yourself. Because again, you have to be a cheerleader. Like no one ever sat over my back and was just like, oh, you're going to do great at this. You're so talented. They were like, Why don't you quit that fucking pipe dream and go do something good with your life and get a job? You know, that was my upbringing. So for me, there was definitely a bit of a fuck you to it, but I always wanted to be the best at what I did, no matter what it is. No, you know, no matter what I pivoted, I'm like the ultra competitor. Always wanted to be the best. So I always set the bar as high as it can possibly go. Like as a mixer, I'm like, I want to beat CLA every fucking day. I want to whoop that motherfucker's ass. Like I'm tired of Chris. He's old, he's stale. I want to whoop his ass. Whether I can or not, it doesn't matter. We've gotten into mixed offs before. Sometimes he wins, sometimes I win, whatever. Doesn't fucking matter. But the point is, you set the bar that high. You know what I'm saying? You set the bar that high. Because if that's what you aspire to be, you'll fucking do it. And if you don't aspire to be that good, you're never going to be that good. I'll give you an example. The guy across the hall from me, he does a lot of local bar bands. He's never worked with a signed band in 20 years. We've been doing this the same time. For him, his bar is just like, I want to be good at local stuff. You know, I don't want to deal with labels, you know, but he's not trying to get better every day. You see, when you set the bar to be number one, right? You have to sit down and be like, okay, what's number one doing that I'm not? Every day you have to go in at it like you going to war. You know, it's like if you decide you want to be the number one runner or the number one swimmer, you're like, all right, I want to whoop Michael Phelps' ass. His time is this. How did he achieve that time? What was his diet? How many hours a day did he train? Who did he train with? You know, you start reverse engineering because success leaves clues and you follow those clues. So, you know, that's how I approach mixing is like, okay, I want to be the best I can at mixing. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to study the shit while I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go watch Nail the Mix, even though I own the goddamn thing, and watch what other producers. I'm going to study my competition because when I go up against them, I'm going to fuck them up. You know, like you got to go in with that kind of attitude. And, you know, because I know they're not going to study me. They're too fucking lazy. So I'm going to study them. I'm going to train. I'm going to work harder. And eventually I'm going to win. So, you know, you have to have that kind of mentality. And I know that sounds like a little bit psychotic. You know, that's pretty extreme. But again, what level do you want to play at? Every night, every day of your life, every second you choose what level you want to play at. And, you know, everybody has different goals, and what success is to you may be different than what it is for someone like me. But I'm the kind of person where I just want to be the absolute best I can. So if I'm educating, I'm like, I want to be the best speaker, the best, you know, the best on camera. I want to have the best, most in-depth knowledge and the most concise explanations. I want, you know, like whatever you needs to do to be great. And if you have that bar for yourself in everything that you do, and you put passion into it, because you cannot fucking fake passion. When you put passion into what you do, it's like a magnet. Like people will attack that. They will go right to it because they want to be around it because it's inspiring. You know what I mean? And it's like you meet other people that are like that, like magnets. You just smack right into each other. So that's it. Like just try to be the best everything you do, because when you do, and you are, you'll achieve insane stuff.
That's actually really good advice. Like I think that's something that I think a lot of like musicians or people in like entertainment realizes, think, oh, I need to be talented. I need to be the most talented, like inherently gifted person in the world. And it's like, no, if you love it and if you're willing to like put all of your like heart into it and like put in the effort, then that's like what will sustain you. So really
Doesn't matter how talented you are. It matters how hard you work. I mean, if your work ethic is top 1%, you can shave off a lot of fucking talent. That being said, there's always those damn freaks out there who just make all of us look bad, that just don't do any work. You know, they exist. There's statistical anomalies for everybody, but the rest of us aren't that person. So we have to work hard.
So we actually had people submit questions online before this thing. So I'm going to pull one. Someone is asking, you know, what's the best advice you have for finding other people in the industry, finding other people who you can make connections with?
Great question. I love this question because this is literally my life every day as we hire people. So like I said, I've explained my mentality. So when you have a mentality like that, you look for other people that have a mentality like that. So naturally you're going to gravitate towards those people because it's like an issue of energy. You know, people like to be around people that are like them. If you're like a really laid back and chilled kind of person, probably won't be surprised to find a lot of your friends are really laid back and they're pretty chill. If you're a fucking intense motherfucker like me, you like hanging out with intense motherfuckers, right? Because laid back people are like, holy shit, this person's crazy. I can't be around him. You know what I mean? So that's a basic rule of rapport and stuff like that. So what you're looking for is superstars. You're looking for people that operate. Oh, I don't have audio if you're talking. Were you saying something?
Oh, no, I'm not saying anything.
Oh, okay. Okay. What you're looking for is superstars. You're looking for people who share your vision of what you want to do, right? And you're looking for people that have, like they stand out. I'll give you an example. Okay. It's better to illustrate this than to rant about it. I have my production manager at Nail the Mix, Nick. Nick started off as an intern. And here's how I knew Nick was worth his shit. So I've had a lot of interns in my life, and most of them don't last 3 days with me because they're not serious. They say they're serious, they come in, and then when it's actually time to show me they're serious and not talk about how fucking serious they are, they don't make it. I'm the nicest guy to work for, but I will whoop your ass when I vet you because I want to make sure that you're serious. So Nick comes in as our new intern. He's going to doing filming and help us set up. And he volunteers to drive on his own accord from Florida, Orlando to Nashville. In the meantime, I'm meeting Billy Decker for Nail the Mix, who's one of the top 5 country mixers in the world. My job is to go entertain this dude that we just met, build the relationship, go to the bar, talk shit, have fun, build a relationship with this guy. These guys are working on the technical side, my partner Al, and now our new. So I walked in there for the first minute. I just met this kid, and he's like, walks up to me with a notepad and a piece of paper and a pen, and he says, "What do you eat and drink in the morning? What time are you gonna roll in?" And I explained to him, I'm like, dude, I'm like, okay, who's this kid? I'm like, yeah, I like green juice, man. Like I'm really into organic food. So give me, I like juice and, this and this and that. And like, I didn't think anything. I go, he's already like setting shit up. He basically took the initiative to learn how our rig works on the way up there with Al, my partner, and like figure it out. So when Al was there, he could start putting it together. So Al didn't have to fucking think about that shit. You see what I mean? The initiative. So I was like, okay, this is cool. So I go out and I'm getting blasted with Billy. We're having fun, Now is my time to party. Sorry, I missed my 20s. So me and Billy are out having a blast at some Nashville rooftop bar, hanging out with like Hailstorm or some shit like that. And we're just doing our thing. I walk in just fucked the next day. I'm just like, what am I doing? And I walk in, and literally the second I walk in the door, Nick comes out of nowhere behind me, pulls a juice. He's like, I got this. It's fresh within 10 minutes. This is the exact brand and the exact kind of juice. It's all laid out with a card and instructions. And I'm like, I like this kid. I didn't even have to ask. He knew. He took notes. He paid attention to detail. He learned the whole rig and got the whole thing set up. Now that shit's his responsibility. He takes initiative. So that's the thing, is like a lot of people walk in with a fucking sense of entitlement. I don't understand this because I'm older, but this is definitely like, I guess I'm technically an older millennial, but this thing started happening to millennials because this is like the fucking participation trophy generation. No offense to you guys, but like, it was different when I was a kid. We weren't so fucking padded by society and so gentle. It was a little bit more fucking badass when I was a kid. Like, you got your fucking ass whooped for half the shit you could say no. So like, people now walk in. I see this all the fucking time with younger people. They'll walk in here as an intern and they'll have a sense of entitlement. They're like, well, I play in a cool band, man. Like, I shouldn't have to show up on time. I'm like, what the fuck did you just say to me? This is day one. You're 2 hours fucking late. You're adding zero value to me. You want to be my intern. You're adding zero value. You're literally wasting my fucking time being here. I get nothing for mentoring. I get fucking zero. It's going to take you at least 6 months to catch up to the point where you can possibly do something that has some fucking value. I'm here because you're here because I'm being fucking kind and I want to help somebody. And you fucking show up 2 hours late. Don't ever disrespect my time like that again. You know what I mean? Like, so that is the normal person. Show up with a fucking sense of entitlement. Like the world fucking owes you. Like, what have you contributed to the world? And what have you done that entitles you to fucking anything? Nothing yet. You're too young. So like, not saying I have either. Every day we got to go out and earn it. So like, if you want to kill it in this game, you got to come in and you got to offer some value to people that want to work with you. So if somebody gives you a shot, you walk in and be the baddest ass motherfucker they've ever seen. You come in and impress the shit out of them. You take notes, you're on time, early. And it's like, somebody's like, how do I get an internship? I'm like, it's really easy. You hit up a person like me and say, I'm going to come work for you and I'm going to be the baddest motherfucker you've ever seen. Let me show you. I'll be there tomorrow. And you're like, okay. Because most people don't have the balls to talk like that anymore. But when somebody does, you take note. And every time anybody's ever talked to me like that, they've been a superstar. So it's very easy to get a gig if you show up with that kind of mentality. Not a lot of people have that mentality. Not a lot of people show up and want to put in the time and the work. Not a lot of people show up and say, I'm going to win. They show up and they're checked out. They're not willing to make the sacrifice. You're like, well, how much am I going to get paid? I want time off. I want to blah. I'm like, you just asked to go work for one of the biggest fucking producers in the world and you want fucking time off? You're already negotiating. What have you done to give you a bargaining chip to negotiate? Like, you don't walk up to Howard Benson and his fucking team and tell Howard what to do. He'll tell you go walk right out the fucking door. He doesn't need you. He's got 40 other people that'll come in that day that will work. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's not hard because the bar is so low and you don't understand how low the bar is until you're actually out there hiring people. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. It's sad that people don't want to work. So it's good and exciting for you guys. Like, sitting here as students, the door is wide open and you can achieve so much and do anything because the bar is so low of what you're competing against. You don't even understand yet. Like, all you got to do is show up and try. Literally, that's the required minimum. If you show up and try to be good and you care, you'll beat 99% of most people professionally. And I know that's like, I don't know, to me, that's a depressing statistic, but it's true. I've been witnessing it for 20 years. I know so many people that own companies, same shit, every industry. People don't give a fuck anymore. It's sad. So be the person that does and you'll win. I said I wasn't going to try to swear.
Oh, it's fine. Okay, so
I'm spitting the truth though. I mean, this is that hard stuff that you learn.
oh yeah. So this is your last chance if anyone wants to ask a question. This is your opportunity. And feel free to just unmute, say whatever you want to say.
They're terrified.
Oh yeah. Going once, going twice. Well, awesome. Thank you, Joel. This is a great conversation. And I really want to thank you for coming here, spending your time, and talking to all of us. So that's great. I just want to let everyone know that we have a lot of more cool events coming up. We have Battle of the Bands all every Friday, all February at the Whole Music Club. That's in the Kaufman. That's the group that I work for at Student Unions and Activities. We have Unplugged at the end of the month. We have a few more of these panels that we'll be announcing very, very soon, and some pretty big shows that you won't want to miss. So thank you, and everyone to have a good day. Think about what Joel said, and yeah, have a great night.
Thanks for your time, Elias, and it's a pleasure. Hopefully that resonates with somebody here and they do something with it. Real quick, I did one of these with one of the universities in Arizona, and there was a student who was just on fire, like 20 questions. And you can't believe what that young lady's achieved in her career in 6 years since then. It's we've stayed in touch, and like every once in a while I'll offer like, I'll mentor and stuff like that. And it's incredible, like what she's achieved. The door is just wide open for you guys. You just got to take it. That's it. You can't sit around. It's not going to be handed to you. You just have to take it.
Great parting words. Well, thanks everyone. Yes, Tom's emojis were very great. Well, I hope you all have a good night, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.